Shalom Aleichem and welcome back, everyone. Baruch Hashem, we're having the zchut to together prepare for Shabbat, Parashat Mishpatim. This week is also being Shekalim, as we're entering Chodesh Adar, Be'ezat Hashem, Mishnichas Adam, Arbim B'Simcha. Okay, Parashat Mishpatim. One of the ideas in Parashat Mishpatim, we know it's all about the laws that were given in Har Sinai. You know, the 10 commandments were given, but all the laws were also given. That says Mishpatim. And one of the psukim in this week's parasha is a very important idea that we learn from here. We have to really take to heart. We're going to go to Perek Chav Gimel, pasuk. Take a look in here. Perek Chav Gimel, pasuk Zayin. What does the pasuk here say? Midvar sheker tirhak. Let's translate those words. Midvar sheker tirhak. I once had a chemistry professor in Torah College in Avenue J, and it was Parshat Mishpatim, and he was a Jewish guy, nice, big Talmid Chacham, and he wanted to give us a Dvar Torah for Parshat Mishpatim. So he wrote these words on the board, Midvar sheker tirhak, and then he started to walk way back to the end of the classroom. Because the words mean midvar sheker tircha, exactly what it means. From a lie, distance yourself. From a falsehood, from an untruth, distance yourself very, very far from it. We have to come today to understand, why didn't the Torah say, don't lie? Everything else you told me, don't eat non-kosher, don't eat this, don't do that. When it comes to lying, it doesn't say don't lie, but rather it says, distance yourself extremely far from it. Midvar sheker tirchak. I want to start off with an amazing story that I heard this week. B'Shem the Boston Rebbe. He says that there was a young couple. They got married, and the husband tells the wife, "Listen, I love you, I trust you, everything like a couple's supposed to be, but I have one request. I have here." In our bedroom, right? We have the drawers there, the dresser. He says, one of these drawers, I'm asking you never to open it. That's my personal drawer, and it's not for you to see. Now, she's a new wife, a new kala, a new kilin, and she wants to, please her husband. So she says yes. It's very curious. She said, you can't go in there. He says, I share with you everything and anything. But this small closet, this small drawer, it's just for me. They got married, they had kids, the kids got up, the kids grew up, the kids got married, all the kids are out of the house. And one day, this man tells his wife, listen, I'm going on a business trip. I'll be back in about a week and a half. I'm going on business. She says, okay. And this is the first time she's home really alone. No kids around, nothing, nothing to do really. And, her curiosity gets the better of her. She wants to open that drawer. She comes over and she wants to open it. She says, no, but I promised my husband already 30 years I never opened it. I'm going to open it today. The next day, and like halfway through, like 4 or 5 days in, her curiosity really gets over her, and she opens that drawer. And imagine what she finds inside. She opens it, and she sees 7 eggs and $50,000. 7 eggs that you keep in the refrigerator, and $50,000. So now she's completely like, what's going on? Why does my husband have eggs and money in this top secret drawer of his? Like, what's the secret? Okay, he has money, 50,000, whatever, but she's thinking, and it's really bothering her. So finally, he comes back. He comes back from the business trip, and she walks over. The first thing her husband walks in, doesn't even get a chance to put down his bags, and she says, I know I promised you that I'm never going to open that drawer, but you were gone. There was no kids, nothing to do. So it got to me, and I opened it, but you got to explain to me. What's the eggs doing there? What do you have? 7 eggs. He says, I asked you not to open it. Why'd you open it? She says, but I did. Now you have to explain it. So he says, I'll explain it to you. He says, when we got married, my rabbi told me that lies in a marriage is a terrible, terrible thing. And he said, this is what you're going to do in order to stop yourself from lying. Every time you lie, you go and you get an egg. And you put it in a closet. And that's going to remind you how many times you lie, you're going to feel bad about it, and you're going to stop lying. And she says, wow, what a tzaddik you are. In the 30 years that we're married, you only lied 7 times? You only have 7 eggs there? You know how many times I lied to you, she says? Hundreds, if not thousands of times. I said untruths, and I didn't say right, da-da-da-da. Wow, and you only 7 times lied. So then she says, but one second, what is the $50,000 in there doing? He says, well, every time I made a dozen eggs, I sold it. Right? The idea of the story, the Boston Rebbe says, is that's how much people lie. People lie a lot. People lie left, right, and center, right? The Mesilat Yesharim says there are professional liars, and then little lesser professional liars, and then people who stand lie whenever it benefits them. Like, the whole world is like, most people are lying, and I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but look in the world around you. The lies are there, and you have to accept them, believe them, and move on with them, right? And people, you know they're lying, so what's going on here? He says in the story, the Rebbe wanted him to see lie after lie, and you'll see how much it is. But instead, what did he do? He changed it for money, and now he made it smaller, so that it didn't bother him as much. I tell you, it's interesting. The Gemara Masechet Sotah says that before Yemot HaMashiach, in the end of the days, Ha'emet tiyeh nedaret. The emet will be hidden. That means the truth will be missing. It just won't be around. You know, I had someone once come to me and ask me, I'm filling out an application. What should I write for my age? You see, if I write 40, I'm going to get a certain discount. If I write 60, I'm going to get a different discount. I asked the guy, why can't you just write your own age? He said it never even dawned upon me to write my own age. I was going to write something that it would work better for me. People stop lying around, you know. Here he says, Rav Zev Smith says that he once bought an item, and it broke after a couple of months. So he brought it back to the store. And he said, listen, because anything can be done. And the store owner said, listen, it had a 6-month return guarantee, whatever. And it's already 10 months. So you lost your guarantee. You're not going to get your money back. But he says, you know what I can do for you? I can print you a new receipt as if you bought it today. And then you can go and send it back. And Rav Zev Smith said, what do you mean? How's that okay? How is that okay? You know, people are just, anytime people just, there's so much lying going around. People go to an amusement park, right? And they're taking their kids, and they have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and then they go in there and tell them, you're 2, and you're 2, and you're 2, because if you're under 2 or under, you're going for free. So what do you just do? For what you lie? For $20? For $40? Come on! It's not going to break the bank, right? If it's going to break the bank, you shouldn't be there, right? We should be getting something else for you, right? And this lies just come out, right? So says Rav Shalom Shadron, that's why the pasuk says midvar sheker terchag. Since lies surround us everywhere, the Torah says you have to keep distancing yourself from it. You have to keep distancing yourself from it. You can't be enough. I'm a little bit away from it. Oh, I didn't. No, there's so much lies. You have to keep running. You have to keep going away from it. It's a constant battle not to lie. You know, here in American culture, they bring down over here from different sources that they say lying has become an integral part of American culture. A trait of the American character. It's just part of American culture is to lie. It's part of it. Think about it. Russian culture is similar. It's even more lying. It was a country based on bribes and lies and communism and all that. Required people to lie and stuff like that. And another answer he brings over here from the Sfat Emet, why he says, Midvar Sheker Tirchad. He says, you know, every time the Torah says this is the halacha, and then the rabbis came and said, okay, because this is the halacha, we're going to make a sayag, we're going to make a fence, so don't do this, right? On Shabbat, for example, you're not allowed to play music instruments. Why? Because it might rip and you might fix it. So you can't clap your hands, you can't do all these things, because you might come to fix a musical instrument. That's a sayag, that's a fence, right? You're not allowed to do something, so they create a fence around it. Says the Sfat Emet, The Torah itself made a fence for lying. Told you, stay far, far, far away from it. The Torah knows how bad lying is, that it made a fence to that lie itself. I want to read to you, Rabotai, from Rav Chaim Vital, the primary student of the Harizal. Listen what he writes about emunah. We all know the Gemara says when you get up to Shemayim, we're going to be asked, Nasata v'natata be'emunah? Did you do business with emunah? Listen what he writes over here. Says Rav Chaim Vital, Hamidaber shekarim kofer be'elokei ha'emet. Someone who lies denies Hashem. He says there's no Hashem. Umodeh be'el aher shehu sheker. And he has a new God. The God's name is lies. That if a person lies, he is believing in avodah zarah. Why? Listen to this. Nasata v'natata be'emunah. What does it mean? You did business with emunah. What emunah means? What does emunah usually mean? Faith. So how does that mean truth over here? Doing business truthfully? Because if you believe that parnasah comes from Hashem, and you know that Rosh Hashanah, your parnasah was already established, then why are you lying? Why are you cheating? Why are you stealing? If you know that the truth is Hashem gives you parnasah, so nasata v'natata be'emunah, how could you think anything else?
Pay bills.
You pay bills, but you think Hashem can't provide? Hashem provides very well. Sometimes you get extra bills because you got extra money illegally, right? So you got it unhalakhically, not halakhically correct money. And now you have to lose them. All sort of medical bills, chas v'shalom, roof collapse, this came in, that came in. All of a sudden you make less money, you have less issues. Things don't happen as much. A person has to do, nasata v'natata be'emunah, says the Rav Chaim Vital. That means if you chas v'shalom lie, you're throwing away Hashem, and you're accepting an avodah zarah called sheker.
What about white lies?
So the halachic allowance for a white lie is you're not really lying, but you're saying something a little bit untruthful. There are some parameters where that's allowed. I'm not going to go into the halachic details of it, but some of them are, for example, safety. Okay, if in a Nazi walks in and says, "Where's a Jew?" Yeah, you don't point to the Jew, right? If someone, the KGB is going after someone, they say, "Where's the Jew?" We want to get it. So at this point, for someone, you see some thug on the street who says to you, you're on the train with him, and you say, and he says, "Which stop you're getting off?" Because he wants to come and attack you afterward. So you can lie to him and tell him the next stop or something like that. Those are called white lies in order for protection. For tzniut reasons, right? For a woman's going to the mikvah, she doesn't have to tell the whole world. Someone asks where you're going, so she can say something a little bit untruthful for tzniut, for safety, these type of things, for shalom bayit. But these things to be taken very, very carefully, right? The Gemara tells him, Second Sanhedrin, there was a rabbi who said an untruth for tzniut, and in a special city where nobody died because everyone always spoke the truth. And even though he said a white lie that halachically was correct, halachically was allowed, was permissible, children started to die in that city, and they kicked him out of there because they said this city is a special city that no one lies in, and you're ruining that specialness for us. So although halachically the white lie was permissible, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says if a person has to say a white lie, he has to feel very, very bad about it. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zechat Tzadik L'Bracha, the communists gave him a lot of trouble. And when he was here in America, one time he gave a drasha and he said, for all the torture and all the punishment and all the harsh things the communists did to me in Belarus, that's where he was, he said, I can forgive them for everything except for one thing, when they made me lie. When they made me lie to protect other Jews, for this, I cannot forgive them. You understand? They tortured him, they punished him, they did all sorts of things to him. But for that, he was ready to forgive. But for uttering a lie, even though halachically it was allowed, he never, ever was able to forgive him for that. Because that's how bad it is. Midvar sheker tircha. We rather not even to get to the white lie if we can stay away from it. I think for us, we have to do a little bit, before we get to even the trouble with the white lie, I think we have to get away from the American culture and the Russian culture that lying is just so, everywhere you go, it's just always there. People embellish stories left and right and just lie for lying's sake because they're so used to doing it. And this was the Parshat coming and telling us, Midrash Shekir, tirchak. Stay far away from a lion. You have to be careful. You can't do switch and bait and other things like that. It has to be done correctly. I want to move on to another lesson from this week's Parshat. And we'll start off with a beautiful story. Another beautiful story. Rabotai, there was once a Jew, a simple Jew, who owned a hotel, an inn, in the olden days. And the way he did his business was, he would have goose, and he would shecht the goose, and he was a sheichet also, you know what a shecht, and he would serve it to his guests. And if he ever had a question on the kashrut status of the goose, he would take it to the rabbi. He would go on a horse and travel to the rabbi who lived about an hour away and ask him questions. One day, as it's getting close to dinner, he goes to his yard, he gets a goose, shechts it, and now he has a safek. He doesn't know if it's kosher or not. He looks inside, not sure if it's kosher or not. He needs a rabbi to look at it. So he's running to his horse. He wants to run to the rabbi. And there is a Jew there who sees and says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "I'm going to the rabbi to ask you if it's kosher." He says, Why are you going to the rabbi? He says, "What do you mean? You have to go to the rabbi, you don't know?" He says, so this guest says, "No, you don't have to go to the rabbi." In Parshat Mishpatim, look at what it says. It says, "Ubasar basadeh terefa lo tochelu." Terefa, meat, you cannot eat. What do you do with it? La kelev tashlichun oto. You throw it to the dog. He says, I heard a trick. If you're not sure if your meat is kosher, you put it in front of the dog. If the dog eats it, then it's not kosher. Because not kosher meat belongs to the dog. If the dog doesn't eat it, that means it's kosher. You don't have to go to the rabbi.
The dog is rabbi?
They're a dog. Ask the dog. Okay? So he says, "You're serious? You're real about it?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Why? You're going to save me hours. Hour to the rabbi, hour back." So he takes his whole family. Everyone's excited. So they get the dog out. They had a dog there. They take the dog out. And they go and they put the goose right in front of the dog. The dog looks at it. He sees everybody looking. He doesn't touch it. But everyone looking. What's going on here? So everyone says, "Siman tov, mazal tov," and now we're going to make shashlik from goose. Everybody's going to enjoy. And they went and they ate it. No, a few weeks later, again, he shechted the goose. And he doesn't know, kosher, not kosher. He's about to jump on his horse and he remembers, what have to go to the horse, to the rabbi? I have the dog. And he throws it to the dog. This time the dog doesn't care who's looking and he eats it. He says, wow, must be not kosher. And so it goes a whole year. Every time he has a question, he puts it in front of the dog and the dog eats it. After about a year, he decides he's going to go back to his rabbi. He goes back to his rabbi. He says, I have a question here about the goose. The rabbi says, I didn't see you in a whole year. What happened? So he says, Rabbi, I'll tell you the truth. Somebody came to my hotel and he told me there's a way to check. What's the way? You put it in front of the dog. The dog eats, it's not kosher. The dog doesn't eat it, it's kosher. So the rabbi says, wow, very nice, very nice. So why are you coming back? He says, Rabbi, I have to tell you, this dog is very mahmir. He's very, very strict. Every single goose is not kosher. He eats it all. It's a very, very funny story. But if you think about it, a lot of people go this way. They may not use the dog. They do shortcut. I don't know if it's kosher. I'm going to Google it. I'm going to Google it. It looks like this, right? It's kosher. They have some sort of app. Or they come up with some sort of hishbanot, some sort of calculations, and they say something is kosher. What happened to asking the rabbi? Right? What happened? Rabbi Google. Bullshit, Rabbi Google. Dr. Google, Rabbi Google, Papa Google, Mama Google. Everything is Rabbi Google now. Chat GPT, right? You can even ask him to write you a whole essay on why it should be kosher. I will tell you. We know the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Aseh lechalav, make for yourself a rabbi. You have to have a teacher. This week, ve'ela ha-mishpatim, all these laws Moshe Rabbeinu is putting like a Shulchan Aruch in front of them, straight so they can understand. We see in this week's parasha what it means to have a rabbi and what it means to be a student. We have Yehoshua. Yehoshua, we all know, is the student of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yehoshua also takes over as the next generation leader after Moshe Rabbeinu passes away. In this week's parasha, Moshe Rabbeinu is going up to Shemayim to get the Torah. And it says that that Yehoshua goes with him. This is what it says. V'yam Moshe el hahar, v'yachas ha'anan el et hahar, v'yishkon kivod Hashem al har Sinai, v'yachiseu ha'anan sheshet yamim, v'yikal Moshe b'yom ha'shivi'i, v'yitoch hanan. Right? Over here, which passage I'm looking at? So 20, v'yivol Moshe v'yitoch hanan, and it says Moshe Rabbeinu goes into the Anan, into the cloud, and he's up in Shemayim getting the Torah. Who is with him here at this time? Vayakom Moshe veYehoshua Mesherato Vayal Moshe el Har Elohim. Yehoshua goes with Moshe, but Yehoshua doesn't just go with Moshe to the mountain. Yehoshua stays there all 40 days as Moshe is up in Shemayim. Why, Yehoshua? Why are you staying there? Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim. You go home. Okay, you escorted him to the mountain. Go home. Why are you staying there now? Chazal says he stayed there all 40 days on the mountain. Remember, that's why he didn't know that they were doing an Egel Hazov. He doesn't know. Because he's up there.
Nobody came and told him?
No, he's busy. He's waiting for Moshe to come down.
Nobody was allowed to go to the mountain.
Okay, go back home. Yeshua, go back home. Have your alarm clock ready in 40 days. You put on your iPhone, right? Find 40 days from now. Put your iPhone on and the calendar, and it's going to remind you 3 hours before. It's enough time to go up the mountain. You meet Moshe Rabbeinu as he's coming down. Yeshua, why are you 40 days waiting at the mountain? Says the Peninim al Torah. Perhaps Yehoshua wanted to teach us the following lessons. When you have a Rebbe, how do you act by a Rebbe? Do you act like Yehoshua? You know what it says about Yehoshua? Yehoshua never left the tent of Moshe. Yehoshua was always there. Yehoshua said, if Moshe Rabbeinu comes down and I don't see him right away, I'm going to lose out from Torah. I have to see Moshe Rabbeinu the minute he comes down. And I'm going to stay here and wait for him. I cannot go back. I cannot distance myself from Moshe. Even though Moshe had to go away up to Shemayim, I will stay as close as I can be so I can see him immediately. This is what it means to be a student. This is what it means to be a Yehoshua. Yehoshua stayed there. He wanted to be with Moshe immediately. And in fact, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down, who did he see? And he spoke directly to Yeshua as soon as he came down. You know what's even more interesting? When we have, later on, when we send the Meraglim, the spies, it lists them in an order. And the Farshim asks, what order is it? What's the basis of ordering them? And it says that the order is based on age. And the Ramban notes, they listed them in age, and Yehoshua is number 5. Not in the order of age, but rather in the order of greatness. Not in age, but in greatness, their greatness. Yehoshua is number 5 in the list. It means Yehoshua is not the greatest Talmid Chacham. There were 4 other great Talmidei Chachamim before Yehoshua. And yet Yehoshua gets to become the next leader. Why? Because he was an actual student. And you know what's the most interesting part of being a student? How long was he a student, Moshe Rabbeinu? How long was Yehoshua a student at this point? How long was he Moshe Rabbeinu's student? A little bit more than a year. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was a midyan, then he came back and he did a Makot. Makot was a year. This is Matan Torah. This is what? 7 weeks after, right? And you have Shavuot. And Yehoshua is waiting. And Yehoshua is considered Moshe Rabbeinu's primary student. And he becomes the one who takes over. Because Yehoshua never left. Yehoshua always wanted to be close to Moshe. You know, we just talked to Rav Chaim Vital. We said he was a primary student of the Arizal. How long was he a student with the Arizal for? He was a year and a half, 20 months. That's it. And everything that we have about the Arizal's Torah learning all comes from Chaim Vital. In 20 months you become the primary student? Yes. if you are attach yourself to the Rav to such a degree that you can't live without him, you become the primary student. Okay? This is the lesson for us. Our lesson is that we have to have a Rav, we have to have a rabbi, we have to have someone we can go and ask to. You know, they say, Aselech harab, make for yourself a rabbi, not find for yourself a rabbi. It's saying, Nimtza harab, don't find a rabbi, it doesn't say that. It's Aselech harab. Why? Because every rabbi you find, you can always find a deficiency with them. Right? He doesn't know this. That one I asked him once, he took him 10 days to respond, he never responded. You can always find something lacking in a rabbi. That's why it doesn't say find a rabbi. It says, Aselech harab, make for yourself a rabbi. Even though he may not know everything, you make him your rabbi. Because he will be more objective than you are. You know, everyone has his own biases. You're subjective to what's going on in your life. But someone from an outsider, especially someone who's a Talmid Chacham, he's able to help you out. But I want to add one more idea to Aselech harab. Says on the Mefarshim, Aselech harab means also make for yourself a rabbi, but it means make yourself a rabbi. What does that mean? You have to have such a rabbi that can teach you how to be a rabbi. Meaning that what? You see, there's so many times that we don't even know there's a question in halacha. We don't even know there should be a question in halacha sometimes. We don't think it's a problem. You have to have a rabbi that can teach you in a way that he makes you more aware of what's going on in halacha. Makes you more aware of what's going on in Torah. Opens your horizons and minds and opens your ideas to life. That's what it means. So it's not enough to listen to the dog, Chas v'shalom, to get your answers. But you got to have a real rabbi to connect to be a primary student of, to learn from, to make yourself a greater person. Don't settle for less. Let's move on to our last idea on this week's parasha. Rabotai, this week's parasha, today, during the day, right, tonight's already the 26th of Shvat, but during the day was the 25th of Shvat. There is a great tzaddik whose yahrzeit falls every Parshat Mishpatim. His yahrzeit is always in Parshat Mishpatim. It's on the 25th of Shvat. You may have heard of him. If you didn't, I'm not sure which rock you're under, but everyone has heard of him. The great Gadol, the tzaddik, Harav Yisrael Salanter, Zecha Tzaddik Lebracha. He was the father of the Musar movement. Musar movement is the movement of it's not enough just to know Torah and learn Torah, but to put Torah into practice, meaning to refine your ethics, to be the better person. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter Zecha Tzaddik Lebracha was someone who was very, very careful when it came to ben adam lahavero, between a person and another person. You see, if you go to the street, you know, the guy on the street, right? You have those guys with the mic that go on the street, and you ask somebody, tell me, what does it mean to be religious? What would be the answers most people would say? It means to serve God. It means to pray. It means to give donations to the synagogue, right? It means to, maybe learn some religious material. But no one will say that being religious means being a good neighbor, being a good husband, being a good friend, being a good person. If you ask people on the street what it means to be, what it means in religion, what it means religion, no, that's the idea of Parshat Mishpatim. Parshat Mishpatim tells you, if someone hits you, this is how much you pay. If a fire broke out, you pay for this damage. You pay for that damage. What does it do with Torah? What does it do with religion? Tell me how to serve Hashem. Tell me maybe I should take on Sukkot, take a lulav. Maybe I should take today something else. I should take some water tree. Teach me some rituals. But the Torah comes and says, no, that's not Torah. Torah is a man, everything. It's ben adam lemakom, between Hashem and a person, between a person and Hashem. It's ben adam lehavero, between a person and a fellow friend. And then there's a third one. What's the third one? Ben adam le'atzmo, between a person and himself. How you deal with yourself is also another factor. This is all in this week's parasha. Let's say a few stories in the name of Yisrael Salanter and how he dealt with different people, different things, and different ideas. I have 3 stories here that I'd like to share, so let's see if we can go through them. The first one is a famous one. Once, Rav Yisrael Salanter was at someone's house, and he was washing Netilat Yadayim. And the Gemara tells us that Rav Ashi would wash his hands with a lot of water. If you wash with a lot of water, you get a lot of parnasa, a lot of bracha. And if Yisrael Salanta took the washing cup and filled it up to the minimum, a revi'it of water, and he washed his hands with it. So one of his students said, Rabbi, you know the Gemara that says you have to wash with a lot of water, get a lot of bracha. And the rabbi said, yes, I know the Gemara, but I also know where this water is coming from. You see, there's a poor old lady that works for this family, that she has to go out in the freezing cold to the well to get the water. I don't want to become wealthy on the back of this woman having to go out in the freezing cold to get the water. This is a Ben Adam, the Haviro person. Some people don't care. They got to go to Minha, they'll double park. I'll park someone's driveway. I'm doing mitzvah. There's no mitzvah. Ben Adam lehavero, Parshat Mishpatim. You have to look out for somebody else. There's a story here that I think speaks volumes of what Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter came back to the city of Salant. It was the time of Tsar Nikolai I. And they had what was known as the Cantonist decree. The Cantonist decree was when they would steal Jewish boys, enlist them into the army, and put them into the Russian army for 25 years minimum. Boys who went there never came out Jewish again. It was very hard to. And they came to the city of Salant and they told them that they need to give a certain amount of boys into the army. Otherwise they're going to come and snatch them. And nobody wanted to give up their kids. All of a sudden in Salant, in the city of Salant, a woman, a widow, and her son, an orphan, came and they started collecting tzedakah from door to door. When they ended up at one of the wealthy man's doors, he saw the situation and he kidnapped the son, the boy, in front of his mother and threw the mother out. And took the boy, went and got government papers to make believe he's his son's boy, and put him in to be enlisted in the army. This woman was going crazy. They stole her son. She went from one rabbi's house to another rabbi's house, one wealthy person's house to another influencer in the community, and nobody helped her. Nobody looked, nothing. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter all of a sudden was making his way through the town. And the woman heard that this Gadol came. And she came to him begging him, please help. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter told her, please come back to me after Shabbat. We'll take care of it. That Shabbat, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter went to the shul. And they were davening. The whole shul was davening. And all the people who were involved in this plot to kidnap this boy, they got the aliyot of the Torah. They prayed Shaharit, Musaf. They were the Hazanim. And they finished everything. They finished the Tefillah. And they made Kiddush. And they said they want to go to Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's apartment. They're going to make Kiddush there. Everyone was invited. All the big, wealthy, all the Rabbonim, all the Askanim, all the great people of the city came. Rabbi Yisrael made Kiddush. And then he looked around at the table, and looking at the wealthy men and the rabbis in the city, he started to scream, murderers! Kidnappers! That's what you are. That's what you are. He says, you, he pointing to one of them, he says, you're so careful to tie your handkerchief around your neck on Shabbat so that you don't carry on Shabbat. But you have no problems of kidnapping, which is one of the 10 commandments. Yeah, you don't have a problem with. And he said, you are so careful with mitzvot, you look out to get a beautiful etrog. And taking a Jewish boy and throwing him into the army, you have no problem with. And he went like this through each and every single one of them and showed them the hypocrisy of theirs. And then he says, in this city of murderers and kidnappers, I cannot stay. And he got up on Shabbat and left. The people were shocked beyond belief. And they made, right after Shabbat, they brought that boy back to her, his mother. But it took Rabbi Yisrael Salanter getting involved. I want to just read here what the Peninim al Torah, Rav Sheinbaum writes. He says, regrettably, there still remains a double standard, where the high and mighty, the pious and committed movers and shakers of various communities and organizations continue to play the game of who will live, who will go to school, which yeshiva will take them. They think they're playing. They think they know what they're doing. They have no idea. He says over here, you have to really respect every single person. You cannot say, I'm better than them. I'm going to take, you're not going to get. Chas v'shalom, chas v'chalila. This is Parshat Mishpatim. I want to end off with one last story about Rabbi Shaul Salanter and his greatness. Rabbi Shaul Salanter, Tzaddik Lebracha, was once traveling on train from Kovno to Vilna. And he's on his way to visit his son-in-law, Rav Eliyahu Eliezer Grodensky, the Dayan in the city. And as he was traveling in this train compartment, there was a young man in there who was very nervous. They were sitting in the designated smoking car, and Shaul Salanter took out his cigarette to smoke. Remember, at this time, they didn't know the dangers of cigarette smoking. Okay? They thought whatever it was, pipe, whatever it was. And this man started to scream, how can you smoke in here? Stop it, throw it out. So Shaul Salanter quickly took it out, even though it was the designated smoking car. Then, Shaul Salanter opened the window. It was hot in there. And this man starts to scream, what do you think? It's the summer? Shut the window. What's wrong with you? And throughout the whole ride, every minute Shaul Salanter did something, this young man was screaming at him. Finally, the trip ends, the train ends, and there's this huge crowd in front of the train station. A lot of yeshiva boys came out. Shaul Salanter is coming to Vilna. So this man, he sees so many boys standing there, so many people waiting there. So he asked them, what are you guys doing here? They say, Rabbi Shaul Salanter's on this train. So he says, who's Rabbi Shaul Salanter? Shaul Salanter starts to walk out, and they point to the man that he was making crazy for the whole ride. So he can't believe it. He feels so bad. The whole night he couldn't sleep. The next morning he finds out Rabbi Shaul Salanter is staying, and he came to ask Mehila. And he comes to ask for Mehila, and Rabbi Shaul Salanter says, of course I forgive you, of course I forgive you. But tell me, why'd you come to Vilna? The man says, listen, up until now, my father-in-law was supporting me. And the support time is coming to an end. And I have to go to work. I want to become a shohet. I want to become a ritual slaughterer. So I wanted to come to Vilna to get a certificate that I know how to be a shohet. I know the halachot, I know the practice, everything. So I was going to come to speak to the Dayan, which is Rabbi Shaul Salanter's son-in-law, to get the certificate. So he says, you know, Rabbi Shaul Salanter says, I'm going to help you get to my son-in-law right away. He gets in touch with the son-in-law and says, my friend is going to come to take the test. The man comes to take the test, and he fails miserably. He comes back to Shaul Salanter, this man who made him crazy on the train. He says, I don't know what to do. I can't go back to the town. Everyone's going to laugh at me. My father's not going to support me. What am I going to do? Shaul Salanter says, no need to worry. He arranges for him to have a habutah. He says, stay here a few weeks. You're going to relearn the halachot, and then you'll take the test. So he sends a telegram back to his father. I'm going to stay a few weeks. He stayed a few weeks. He learns halachot. Everything arranged by Shaul Salanter. He then takes the test again, and he passes. And Shaul Salanter also writes for him. Shaul Salanter then looks for he communicates to people in this man's city to find a job for him and sends him back to a guaranteed job with a certificate that he's a shohet. So the students came to Rabbi Shaul Salanter and they said, why did you go so far? Why did you go so far? Rabbi Shaul Salanter said, I really forgive them right away. But in my heart, I still had some anger against him. You know, he really made me crazy on the train for so long. It was a long ride. I had so much anger still. I forgive them, but I was still angry. And the Gemara teaches us that if you hate somebody, how do you come to love him? By doing good things for them. So he said, I had that much anger that I kept doing good things for him until I started to love him so much. And that's why I did what I did for him. Says Rav Pam, if only we can look at this way as well. We have people around us we may not like. What do we do at that point? You do something good for them. This is the Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. This is Parshat Mishpatim. This is Ben Adam Lehavero. So Rabotai, to quickly review the 3 lessons that we learned from this week's parasha. Lesson number 1, sheker. You have to distance yourself so far from it, and you have to work towards truth. The second lesson was, you need a rabbi. You got to be a primary student, and that means someone who wants to be connected to his rav at all times. So much so, we'll add this on. Right, the Gemara tells us stories about students of rabbis who would follow the rabbis into the bathroom to see how they use the bathroom. And that's Torah too, to see how your rabbi uses the bathroom. We don't understand this. But that's what it was. Rabbi Akiva did it to his student. His student, Rabbi Akiva did it to him. It's Torah. How you use the bathroom. It's niyut and everything. That's how much you have to be a student. Someone who wants to learn and understand. And a rabbi who can teach him to understand more. And then our third lesson is if we can just emulate maybe just a little bit, if not everything, of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, Zechem Tzadik L'Bracha. And the best way to become Rabbi Yisrael Salanter is by learning Musar. Right? Someone once came to Rabbi Yisrael Salanter and said to him, I only have 5 minutes a day to learn. This is before iPhones even. Right? I only have 5 minutes to learn. So Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, he said, what should I learn? Halacha, Gemara, what should I do? What did Rabbi Yisrael Salanter tell him? Learn Musar. He says, why? Because if you learn Musar, you're going to find out that you have a lot more than 5 minutes to learn Torah. All right? If you really want to be a good Jew and do the right thing, you'll see how you have a lot more than 5 minutes to learn Torah. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be zocheh to increase our Torah learning as well. With this, I want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.
Amen.